We're coming down from a big solar storm that gave us aurora in places like China, Greece, Texas, and Perth, Australia. And a new flare emerges on the Earth-facing disk that might bring up activity once again. Those stories and more in the Spotlight this week. Space weather this week is definitely calming down from that massive solar storm that we had just the other day that brought aurora clear down to low latitudes like China and Greece and Perth, Australia and Texas and California. There were so many different places. Now, as we take a look at our Earth-facing disk, the main culprit for some extra aurora that we've been dealing with is this coronal hole right here. This coronal hole is sending us some fast solar wind. It's kind of like a fast wind chaser. Now, it's not enough to bring aurora down to mid-latitudes anymore, so the shows are going to remain up at up at high latitudes, but it's going to remain around for the next day or two before things totally calm down. Now, as we continue taking a look at the rest part of the disk, this region 3483, look at this thing. Look how fast it's growing. This region right here has now become a big flare player, and even though right now the risk for radio blackouts at the R1 to R2 level is staying pretty low, we're definitely watching it because it's growing so quickly, and that may boost the activity. It's rotating right through the Earth strike zone right now, along with region 484, which is a region that's also just beginning to kind of peek through. And so we're going to be watching these over the next couple days to see what they're going to do, and it could mean big solar storms might be on the menu once again. Now, switching to our solar storm conditions and aurora possibilities over the coming week, we are dealing with the fast solar wind from that coronal hole that you saw on the Earth-facing disk, and it's going to give us high latitudes. We're going to have active conditions over the next couple days with about a 20% chance of a major storm, and that's going to, settle down a bit as we move into the 11th and 12th through the weekend and into next week. We should be back to reasonably calm conditions, even at high latitudes, unless, of course, that new region ends up sending us a solar storm or two. We'll just have to wait and see when it comes to that. Now, at mid-latitudes, well, we are still dealing with some fast solar wind. We only have about a 15% chance of minor storm conditions, and that's only going to last about through the 9th before things really settle down, and that will bring us to unsettled conditions throughout the rest of the week and into next week, unless, of course, we have a new solar storm launch. But otherwise, you're going to be able to deal with just kind of looking over your aurora photos and enjoying. Now, switching to our solar flare and dayside radio blackout over the coming week, we are sitting at about the mid-140s for solar flux. Now, that number may rise with this new active region in Earth view. We're not exactly sure when, how high that solar flux will get, but we do have a couple regions on the far side of the sun that could also cause some solar flux to boost for us, and that will happen probably Sunday into Monday. Meanwhile, we're only sitting at about a 10% chance of the R1 to R2 level radio blackouts. These are M-class flares, and that will be over the next day or so. Again, that risk may rise considerably depending upon how these new regions act over the next few days, but we should be remaining pretty much clear of R3 level radio blackouts. So amateur radio operators and emergency responders, you shouldn't have too much trouble on the bands over the next couple days and possibly in through this week, but you never know, so stay vigilant. Now, switching to our radiation storm and polar aviation outlook over the coming week, everything continues to be in the green. We are at the D1 normal range. This is for you aviators at flight level 360, and that does also means that we're in the S0 range for everyone else. Means that we are definitely staying quiet. We don't have any risk for big radiation storms, even from those new regions that are beginning to become active. So you frequent flyers, and this means aircrew and high-risk passengers, we're sitting at about a 1% risk for radiation storms. That may rise as we get closer to the end of the week, but I doubt it. I think everything will stay in the green, and so you're all in the clear. So the space weather this week is actually pretty good. We're calming down quite a bit from that massive solar storm that we had just the other day, and now we're just dealing with some fast solar wind from that coronal hole that's continuing to rotate through the Earth strike zone. Doesn't look like we have much in the way of future storms at the moment, but You'll never know, especially if that region 3483 ends up becoming a solar storm producer, but we'll just have to keep our eyes on it and hope that, maybe things will be quiet for a while. I'm Tamitha, the Space Weather Woman. Thank you for watching.